That little china figure on the shelf in the spare room, the one the grandchildren call a dust collector, the one you've walked past 10,000 times, might be worth $12. Or it might quietly be worth 3,000. 10 figurines tonight. Some have crossed the auction block for hundreds, a few for many thousands of dollars, and the one that stands on nearly every shelf in America, the one you almost certainly own, is waiting at number 1. Let's find out what's really standing on your shelves before you box it up or hand it to the fellow who offers to take the lot off your hands. Keep a pen by your chair, because you'll want to write a couple of these names down before the night's over. A quick word before we start. This is general information to help you identify and enjoy your pieces, not a formal appraisal. Values move with condition, the market, and the day. Anything you believe is valuable, have it looked at in person before you sell it. Here's the truth most folks never hear. With a figurine, value does not live in how pretty the thing is. It lives in the mark on the base, the maker who made it, the year it left the factory, and whether it survived all these years without a chip. The name on the front is the story they tell you. The mark on the bottom is the truth. Turn it over. Read the bottom. Believe what it tells you. With a figurine, the bottom is the maker's mark and the little symbol that tells you the year. So let me be honest with you the way a real dealer would. My name is Walter Ashford. For 40 years I've bought and sold at estate sales, farm auctions, and house clearances across the Midwest. And I'm a dealer, not a certified appraiser, and that is exactly why I'll tell you the plain truth. Most of the figurines in most American homes are worth a few dollars a piece, and I will tell you so to your face. But a handful are worth stopping everything for, and one of those could be standing on your shelf tonight. I'll tell you which is which, and I will not dress up the rest. Here's why this matters. For most of the last century, a fine china figurine was what you gave for the moments that mattered. A christening, a wedding, a 50th anniversary, a Mother's Day. They came into the house, went up behind the glass of the cabinet, and stayed there for 50 years while the family stopped seeing them. That is exactly why they're in your mother's cabinet right now. And if somebody once told you those little figures are just dust collectors worth nothing, that was not carelessness on your part. Nobody ever taught you to lift one up and read the base. Tonight, somebody will. Number 10. Precious moments. Those teardrop-eyed children in soft pastel. And I'll start right here on purpose, because this is the one everybody thinks is their retirement fund. Your instinct is that the ones your aunt collected through the 80s and 90s must be worth a fortune by now. Fair enough, but they were made by the millions, and the plain truth is most sell today for $5 to $20, plenty for less than the box they came in. I won't dress that up. Now, there's a narrow exception, and it's real. The earliest pieces, the original run from the late 1970s and early 80s, are the ones collectors chase. One early model, God Loveth a Cheerful Giver, has sold for a few $100s, and the finest early, signed, boxed examples past 1,000. Your test tonight. Turn it over for the mark, a little symbol they changed almost every year. A triangle, an hourglass, a cross. The earliest marks are the money, and the box can be worth more than the figure. The loss I see here is the opposite of the others. A whole cabinet held 30 years as a college fund it never was. Number 9. Royal Doulton. Number 9. Those English ladies in flowing dresses, a woman with a parasol, a girl in a wind-blown gown. Your instinct is they're all fussy and dated, and most of the common ones, the pretty ladies sold in every department store for decades, are honestly modest, $20 to $60. But turn one over. On the base are two little letters, H, N, and a number. That number is the key to the whole kingdom. Doulton has made these since the early 1900s, and the early figures, the short-run models withdrawn after only a few years, are a different animal entirely. Rare early pieces and color trials have sold for hundreds into the thousands, and one flawless withdrawn model changed hands for $10,000. Your test tonight. Read the HN number and how few years it was made. The lower and older the number, the more a collector cares. The loss I see most often is a rare early Doulton priced at $1 beside the common ones, because from 6 feet away, they all look like the same old lady in a long dress. Number 8. Lladro. The tall, pale Spanish porcelain, the long-necked girls and geese with those delicate stretched faces. Here's the hard part, taught honestly, because Lladro is the great condition trap of the figurine world. Most from the 1980s and 90s sells today for $50 to $300, and I won't inflate that. But the large early sculptural groups, the limited editions with their certificates, the pieces from before 1970, have realized $1,000 to $6,000 and more at auction. And now, the honest warning that governs every figurine tonight. These are covered in tiny applied flowers and long fragile fingers. A broken finger, a lost flower, a nick on the base can cut the value by half in one instant. A chip on the base halves the price. I'll say that plainly, because a lot of folks online won't. Your test tonight. Take it to a bright lamp and run your eye over every fingertip, every petal, the very edge of the base. Damage you can barely feel is damage a buyer will price. The loss I see most often is a big Lladro sold high by a family that never noticed the hairline at the base, and the deal falls apart the moment a real buyer turns it over. Number 7. Hummel. Number 7. Those chubby-cheeked German children, the boy with the umbrella, the girl with the geese. Nearly every house has one, and that's exactly why most people guess wrong. Turn a Hummel over and read the trademark, because the maker, Goebel, changed that mark about every 15 years, and the mark is a birth certificate. From 1935 to 1949, it was a crown, sometimes pressed right into the clay. From 1950 to 1955, a large B flying inside a V, what collectors call the full B. Those two early marks can be worth 5 to 20 times what the very same figure carries with a later mark. Most common later, Hummels sell for $15 to $75, and that's where the great majority land. But a piece with that early crown mark is one to stop for. Your test tonight. Turn it over and hunt for a crown, or a B inside a V. Later marks, a small stylized B, or just the word Goebel, are the modest ones. The loss I see most often is a crown-marked Hummel sold in a box lot for a few dollars because the family only ever looked at the front. Number 6. The Danish Blue. Royal Copenhagen and its sister house, Bing and Grundal. Quieter pieces, painted in soft blues and whites, a boy on a bench, a girl with a cat, a pair of doves. People pass right over them because they aren't flashy. But turn one over. Royal Copenhagen signs its work with 3 little wavy lines in blue under the glaze for the 3 old waterways of Copenhagen, and Bing and Grundal uses 3 castle towers. The small annual figures are modest, often $30 to $80, but the larger early pieces, and the ones designed by their name artists, have sold into the several hundreds, more for the scarce models. Your test tonight. Run a finger across the 3 wavy lines, glass smooth under the glaze, and you have the real Danish work. The loss I see most often is these mistaken for cheap blue and white and set out for $1, because the whole beauty of them is that they whisper instead of shout. Now before we get to the top 5, there's something about all of this that most folks never stop to realize. The figurines that turn out to be worth real money almost never look expensive. Appearance keeps lying to people. What actually decides the value is a small handful of signals: the maker's mark, the year symbol, the size, and whether a hand or a flower or the base survived without a chip. And those things are learnable. Once you can read a base, you never unsee it. Number 5. The American porcelain birds. Boehm and Cibus. Life-sized wrens, cardinals, warblers on a branch, so finely made the feathers look soft. These were the prestige gift of the 1960s and 70s, given to presidents and popes, and they've quietly slipped out of fashion. A common later production bird might bring under $100, and I'll be straight about that. But the good vintage Boehm birds have sold for $500 to $3,000, and the rare early limited editions past $10,000. Cibus, the other great American studio, runs right alongside them, and folks constantly mix the two up. Your test tonight. Look on the base for the signature, or the studio stamp, then look hard at the thin parts, the beak tip, the wing edges, because a chip on a bird's beak is the difference between $3,000 and $300. The loss I see most often is one of these donated as an old knickknack, because nobody read the mark and nobody knew what a Boehm was. Number 4. Meissen. Now the ground shifts. This is the oldest and grandest name on the shelf, the first porcelain ever made in Europe, and it carries the most famous mark in the business: 2 crossed swords painted in blue. Good 20th century pieces have sold for $500 to $2,000, 19th century figures for $3,000 to $8,000 and up, and the great 18th century groups climb into the tens of thousands. But here's the warning, and it's a big one. Those crossed swords are the most copied mark on earth. For 100 years, lesser workshops have painted crossed swords on ordinary porcelain and passed it off. Here's your test tonight, and it costs nothing. Run your fingernail gently across the crossed swords. On a genuine piece, the mark sits under the glaze, smooth and sealed, and your nail glides right over it. If you can feel it raised on top of the glaze, be very careful, because that's how a great many fakes give themselves away. I got burned on this one myself once, years ago. I bought a crossed swords figure that felt right in my hand, and the mark sat up on top of the glaze where it had no business being. I paid for that lesson so you don't have to. And one honest note, little lines ground through the swords are the factory itself marking a second, and they lower the value, real Meissen or not. Number 3. The German half dolls. And I put this one in tonight because so many of you have asked me about them. These are the little porcelain half figures, a lady from the waist up, that sat on a pincushion or a powder box on your grandmother's dresser, made in Germany in the 1920s and 30s by houses like Dressel and Kister and Fasold and Stauch. Most people have no idea they're collectible at all. Here's the whole secret in one line. Look at her arms. If the arms are molded flat against the body, she's common, often just $20 to $50. But if the arms are sculpted out away from the body, reaching up, holding a fan, free of the waist, she is rare, and she is the money, into the hundreds of dollars, and the finest Dressel and Kister ladies have sold for many hundreds and up. Your test tonight. Look at the arms, and read the mark on the base, an incised number, and the word Germany. Arms free of the body. Stop and look closer. The loss I see most often is one of these swept into a box of sewing notions and sold for $1 with the pincushion still pinned to her waist. Number 2. And we come back to Hummel, because the rare early ones deserve their own place near the top. Number 2. A large Hummel from that first crown mark era, 1935 to 1949, is one of the great sleepers in the American home. Take the Merry Wanderer, the boy with the umbrella and satchel. In a common later mark, he's a $50 figure. But an early crown-marked Merry Wanderer has sold for $200 to $600 and well beyond, the larger sizes for more, and the rarest early models and the giant display sizes climb into the thousands. The very best early Hummels have crossed the block for $5,000, $10,000, on up toward $25,000 for the great rarities. Your test tonight. Turn it over for that incised crown, and notice the size, because the bigger the early piece, the more the collector wants it. The loss I see most often is the big old dusty Hummel on the top shelf, too tall for the cabinet. Sold cheap because it was in the way, when the size was half of what made it valuable. And number 1. The figurine nearly every single one of you already owns, without thinking twice about it. A common Hummel, or a Precious Moments, or a pretty lady Doulton, sitting on a shelf in the spare room right now. I will not inflate this for you. The most common Hummels are honestly worth $15 to $75, and the common Precious Moments, $5 to $20, and that's the truth, whether the internet likes it or not. Fame is not value. The figure the whole world recognizes is almost never the one worth the most, because the whole world already has one. But, and this is the whole reason we spent tonight together, the value was never in the famous name on the front. It was always in the details on the bottom. The early crown mark, the withdrawn HN number, the crossed swords smooth under the glaze. So the figure everyone owns is usually modest, and the fortune is hiding in the 10% that most folks never turn over. Check the base. Every single one. Let me tell you about a man I'll call Vernon. He lost his wife a few winters back, out past Ottumwa. Along one wall of the spare room was a shelf of her Hummels, 40 years of them, one for nearly every birthday and anniversary, and the grandchildren had taken to calling them the dust collectors. The kids were ready to run the whole shelf to the church sale in a laundry basket. But Vernon couldn't do it, and couldn't say why, so the shelf stayed. When we looked together, most were exactly what you'd expect, sweet later pieces worth a lunch apiece. But down at the end, tucked behind the others, were two his wife had bought as a young bride in the 50s, both carrying that full B mark, worth many times all the rest combined. Not a fortune, but real money, and more than that, it was the last thing her hands ever arranged on that shelf. You were the one who couldn't clear it. That instinct was right the whole time. Now let me be honest the way I promised. Most of what's on most shelves is worth about what a nice lunch costs, and I'd be lying to tell you otherwise. I will never tell you your particular figure is worth a number from across a table I cannot see. What I will tell you is which marks and which makers are worth stopping for, and that anything that makes your heart jump, you carry to a reputable dealer or a certified appraiser and have it looked at in person before you sell it or price it. and a chip on the base halves the price, so handle the good ones like eggs until you know. Because here's who profits from your not knowing. The thrift store that pulls the good figure off the donation table and lists it online that same night. The buyer who offers to take the whole curio cabinet off your hands as a kindness, then pockets the 1 crown marked piece on his way out the door. And the first offer, always the first offer, made by the person who has already read the base you never turned over. None of that is a crime. It just counts on you never lifting the figure up. So here's the short list to carry back to that shelf. Turn every figure over and read the base. On a Hummel, hunt for a crown or a B inside a V. On a Doulton, read the HN number and how few years it was made. On a Meissen, run your nail across the crossed swords and feel whether they're smooth under the glaze. On a half doll, look for arms that reach away from the body. And on any of them, check the edge of the base for a chip before you believe a single dollar. If you can't write fast enough, take a picture of the screen right now and you'll have the whole list in your hand at the cabinet. So tell me down in the comments, what's the oldest piece in your house and whose hands did it come off of? Your mother's shelf? A grandmother's dresser? A house you helped clear? I read every one. And the story of who owned it is half the value. Next time, we do exactly this for the fine china in the same cabinet, the dinner plates and the teacups your mother saved for good, and the one pattern nearly every American home has without knowing what it's worth. So before you clear a single shelf, before you take the first dollar anyone offers you for your mother's figurines, turn it over, read the bottom, and believe what it tells you. What everyone recognizes is almost never the thing worth the most, because the whole world already has one. I'll see you at the next table.